So my mum used to make marmalade. The whole house would smell of burnt sugar. And she would pour the marmalade into jam jars. And then she'd put a label saying marmalade, 1984. And sometimes my dad would make pickled walnuts. And luckily, these would be labeled because you didn't want to get them mixed up. And so you can see, labels pretty useful for jam jars. It describes what's in those jars. You know what you're getting. But I'm finding more and more we're giving labels to people. And I'm not telling you what to think about this. I'm just talking about my own experience and my own way of seeing it, but I'm not asking you to do anything with it. I'm not telling you I'm right. It's just that for me, it doesn't really make sense. When I spoke to that girl with the borderline personality disorder, and I asked her how it was, having this label, and she said it was quite terrifying. Because it was almost like she was seeing her life living in the confines of this jar, tight and restrictive. This is who I am. This is my flavor. This is who I'm going to be. And she said, yeah, knowing that I've got this label forever isn't great. And I said, forever is a long time. I said, come back here now, in this moment. I don't see you with a label. I don't see you with a disorder. I just see you. Could it be that in this space, we're all the same? I've got a bee landed on my finger. Ah! One of those big hairy bees. I like those ones. They're really fat. Yeah, in this sort of space, we're all the same, maybe. Beyond before we pick up our identity, before we start to go into the future and think about what it looks like, or before we kind of start to judge our feelings and limit ourselves and confine ourselves to this kind of strict, this is who I am. Because surely as humans, we're more fluid. And like I say, I'm not asking you to believe me, but sometimes labels can kind of act as a validation. Oh, this is why I'm the way I am. This is why I feel like this. This is why. And we still don't like the feelings. We're still saying these feelings are wrong. When I feel low or when I feel it's all wrong. And yet maybe our feelings are always the barometer to kind of show us what we're thinking. We meet them, we meet our feelings, and we let them in and we let them pass, and rather than judging them and going, this is part of my disorder. This is why my disorder is, that's why I feel this way. And I guess I'm just getting people to be, or not, I don't know, just you. Are you interested in looking beyond these labels? I mean, I think that, we are, of course, we're different, as in we have different experiences of life. And I think that we know that some of the population, for example, is more sensitive. Like my daughter is very sensitive to noise, and she has like a heightened, she uses her mind. Her mind she uses her mind differently. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why it's so useful to see how you're using your mind, and also to find this space beyond your mind. Because if you're someone who takes yourself into overwhelm, gets fixated on all the thoughts that are coming through, then finding this space of quiet is really key, is really helpful, is really, because then you're not scared of your experience, not scared of your mind. There isn't this rush to try and numb the feelings and get rid of it all. and label it and something wrong with me because you're no longer scared of your experience, because you're the awareness having an experience. We all are, however we're seeing the world. And my daughter, when she was little, we had this, like, the NutriBullet in the kitchen. If someone turned on the NutriBullet without telling her, she would scream blue murder. Oh my God, you would know it. She would absolutely have a fit because this noise, she would find it really overwhelming. Or if you turned on the Hoover, oh my God, she would go crazy. And, school assemblies, it was like, okay, she can't go to assembly because she finds all the noises too overwhelming. It's too much for her. But the interesting thing is, now, so that was when she was maybe 13, and it was real. I'm not saying it's not real. For her, she wasn't making it up. It was real for her. This is how she was seeing the world. And it was scary. It was overwhelming. And it was different from how I see the world, for example. But now, so she's 20. If I turn on the NutriBullet or if I turn on the Hoover, she doesn't bat an eyelid. She goes to festivals. She goes to events that before she would have found completely overwhelming. She lives her life, not restricted in any way by things that she can't do or labels or... And yet is she highly sensitive to noise? And yeah, she is. But she doesn't give it a meaning anymore. This is what she told me. I said, how is it that, before when we turned on the NutriBullet, whatever, you would go berserk and you couldn't go to assembly or you couldn't. And she said, because it scared me or I gave it a meaning. And she said, now I don't give it a meaning like I used to. It's like it no longer defines her. It no longer... She still has a heightened senses, but she's not scared of it. She's not scared of her experience in the way that she used to be. She kind of pauses to see it and to see what she's doing, and it doesn't stop her. It doesn't define her. It's not a label. I mean, she could have easily had a label, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just questioning how useful it is. Because we can be fluid, as we become more aware of how we're using our gift of thought, how we're using our mind, what we fixate on, then we don't need to live to limitations. Knowledge is power. We know what we're doing. She knows when she needs some time out. She calls it her social battery. She goes, my social battery is low. She takes herself off and has some time out. And I don't know, I just kind of see that our lives could have gone in such a different direction. I just think everything now is fluid. The awareness is fluid. It's just growing, changing. She's growing, changing. She has her struggles. They're how she grows. It's how she sees more and more. She gets caught up in stuff, and then we'll just come into this quiet space and she'll listen and she moves through it and on she goes. That's life. There doesn't need to be this sort of fixed limitations of who we are and what we can do and can't do because we have these labels and this is me. And what if it isn't? And do you want to live in the confines of this jar? Labels are for jam jars. Because ultimately, when we have labels, we're going to live to them. And you might completely disagree, and that's fine. I'm not wanting to be right here. I'm literally, I'm just reflecting on what if, and maybe there is sort of limitations there where there doesn't need to be. And that was just my experience. That's all. I'm only sharing my experience. I'm not asking you to do anything with it, but that's just what I was thinking. So I'm sharing it with you. And you'll have your own thoughts around that. Or maybe you won't. And that's fine. Okay, that's enough.